spiritual warriors. Welcome to our spiritual warriorship class discussion, where we discuss here from the books of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. At the present moment we are reading from Spiritual Warrior 5, Chapter 5, entitled The Need for Constant Mindfulness. I hope you've been following through with being mindful. I know for me it's been quite an experience. And I've also found that no matter how determined you are, somehow for a moment sometimes we will forget. But this is why he calls his practices, his mindfulness meditation, a practice. And they say practice makes perfect. So if you're endeavoring to work with these mindfulness points, practice. So where do we start? Sorry I wasn't here in person last week, but technology broke down, but I'm thankful it's working this evening. Anybody in the chat room so far?
Yes.
Who's that?
There's Bhakti and Carol, David, Shivam family, and I think that's it.
That's it for now.
Patel. Anushka Patel.
Oh, okay. Welcome again. So we've been talking about mindfulness, the importance. And I don't want to give a whole review. When I prepare for this, I always feel like, oh my gosh, I wonder if they got that. But let me just go along. He starts out by stating the practice of mindfulness enables us to perceive the essence of all things. And then he tells us every entity and element has its essential nature. But the ultimate essence of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He stresses this through all his writings. And then I like this sentence where he tells us, furthermore, the Godhead is so mystically creative, cleverly subtle, and extraordinarily diverse, that recognizing and honoring him at every moment requires great mindfulness. So he's telling us, in other words, that mindfulness means to constantly see Krishna or God in everything at all times. That's being mindful. Because it has to start from a foundation of knowing, as we said, that the essence of everything is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it also involves the recognition of God's right to be what he wants, when he wants, and interact with us as he wants. So that's, again, he gives us from the onset what mindfulness means. Another point I wanted to bring out. Now, those of you who have been regularly with me, if you have, know in this particular chapter, Bhakti Tirtha Swami gives a number of texts from Bhagavad Gita as resource and to refine some of the statements that he made. And I gave them all out at one time what the texts were and suggested that you read Prabhupada's purports. I hope you've done that. What I did today, I haven't been as good a student as I want you to be, but today I went back and read one, because he tells us also that people who are unable to go beyond mere religiosity and bathe in spirituality, you realize? Bathe in spirituality, will fail to make deep spiritual connection. That's why we're following the concept of a spiritual warrior. We want to bathe in spirituality and become deeper connected to the Supreme. But consequently, they will be swept up by the waves of material culture, by demonic propaganda, and by tremendous illusion that brings all kinds of gloom and anxieties and frustration. So in order to avoid these devastating consequences, we want to focus on how to see God everywhere. Now Krishna himself tells us in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Tesam satata yuktanam bhajantam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Very familiar verse. Now I did today decide to check myself what Prabhupada said. See, I don't give exams on here, but I do make suggestions so that we can move ahead and get really bathed in spirituality. And it's always wonderful to hear Srila Prabhupada's purports. Now, the purport for this particular text, he says that the word Buddhi Yogam is very significant in this verse. And if we recall in the second chapter, Krishna instructs Arjuna, and he told him that he had spoken to him of many things and that he would explain Buddhi Yoga itself. Now, Buddhi Yoga in Krishna consciousness is the highest intelligence, because Buddhi means intelligence, and yoga means mystic activity or mystic elevation, or as we say, yoga means to link back to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when one tries to go back home, back to Godhead, and takes fully to Krishna consciousness in devotional service, his action is called Buddhi Yoga. And just as a reminder, when a person knows the goal of life, but is addicted to the fruits of activities, he's acting in karma yoga. Remember, we had those different yogas. When he knows that the goal is Krishna, and he takes pleasure in mental speculation to understand Krishna, he's acting in Jnana Yoga. And when he knows the goal, this is Bhagavad Gita, text 10, chapter 10, text 10, text and excerpt from the purport. when he knows the goal is Krishna, but he takes pleasure in mental speculations to understand Krishna, he's acting in Jnana Yoga. And when he knows the goal and seeks Krishna completely in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, he's acting in what? Bhakti Yoga, seeing Krishna completely. Bhakti Yoga or Buddha Yoga, which is the complete yoga. And the complete yoga is the highest perfection of life. So here we have, I call the way Bhakti Tirtha Swami explains sometimes, he takes us, he gives us second grade language, breaks it down so you can get it. But don't forget, when you hear it, you got to put it to practice. And then it's proven. Okay, so I want to keep going. But those were, there was another section when he talks about we want to develop continual mindfulness so that we can experience and interact more with God at every moment. When we develop proper mindfulness, even our external circumstances will no longer matter, because we will have dovetailed our consciousness with God and develop cognizance of Him even at work, at home, or on the street. Mindfulness of who God is, and you see Him in everything. Okay, we want to move on. Another thing he again reminds us. He says mindfulness means experiencing God everywhere. Seeing everything as a manifestation of Him. And seeing everything in Him. It also means positioning ourselves to receive and experience God's blessings and auspicious energies in our day-to-day functions as we eat, drink, sleep, mate, and defend. We can see all things in relation to Krishna by remembering His words. And here he quotes Bhagavad Gita again. O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man. So Krishna gives us many opportunities to remember Him. So you can't say, I can't remember God every minute. I mean, if you just see the sunshine, or nighttime, you're hanging out a little bit. There's the moon. Krishna says He is the moon, sun. And you know the Prabhupada with the story of the taste of water, that even a person drinking wine, it's a liquid, must have some water in it somewhere. It's Krishna. So we have many opportunities. And as we're hearing this, experience Him everywhere, see Him don't let the mind come in and how you're going to do that. You know, you're so busy, your office and school work and that. No. He is everywhere and everything. Okay, We want to keep moving. I get excited about this. When we function with a mindful consciousness during our daily duties, or at home or at work. Now, some of that, as we know, is sometimes it may seem quite tedious and unfulfilling, especially if you got a job, you're just, I don't know, putting a screw in a hole or something like that. But such duties can take on a whole different perspective because we see them in relationship with the aspect of the Creator. Okay? So, moving right along. So what did he do, Bhakti Tirtha Swami? He shared a meditation with us from his book, The Beggar, remember? Entitled, Well Done, My Darling, Well Done. And we went through quite a few of them, and I want to get to where we're to be for this particular program. Okay. You remember we looked at him practicing mindful breathing. Do you remember that? And then he went out, he practiced mindful walking. And then he practiced mindful talking. Imagine each activity, you're mindful of what you're saying, what you're doing, where you are. Sometimes we get caught up in our concerns and problems and we're like, amnesia victims. And then he practiced mindful hearing. Then he practiced mindful eating. Because of this particular one, I'm trying to stop a habit I've started to some degree. And I don't know why I feel time is running away, and it is moving pretty fast. But, you hear about people who eat in front of the TV. Well, I don't watch TV, so I don't do that. But I've found myself bringing my tray to my desk to go on the computer to read the news headlines sometimes, if I'm curious of what's going on out there in that world, or to check my email. Can't be very thoughtful, mindful during those periods. You can be mindful of the horror that's out there. So after reading this one on practicing mindful eating, I'm breaking that habit so I can focus on the prasadam. So where are we today? Remember, he also practiced mindful seeing. And I believe today we do mindful reading. And if I've done it before, won't hurt to hear it again. How about that? Any questions or comments up to this part?
Not so far. I had a question.
Okay.
I was wondering if there's any case where it's offensive to bring Krishna into the picture. Like when he said, like mating, I thought that was pretty surprising that even while, mating, to think of Krishna. So I was wondering if there's any case where you're doing certain activities, is it offensive to bring Krishna into the...
But Krishna's energy is in everything and everywhere. He's in our hearts. We can't escape him. Whatever we're doing, wherever we are. And if we're mating, he himself says in Bhagavad Gita, he's sex life. If you, using it according to instructions. So, only if you speak against Krishna, you're definitely being offensive. And as the way you're saying it, we know whether we're being offensive or having the proper behavior for Krishna to see us in. Because he sees us. Can't escape him, no matter what. that okay?
Yeah, and I also wanted to ask, for certain rules and regulations, would you say, is it better to, if you feel that you can't, like, follow some, is it better to work to the point where you can follow it exactly how it's said, or is it better to just
Okay, this is where a spiritual master comes in very handy, and if we don't have one at the time, a senior devotee, that we can present our question, because they're given, those rules and regulations are given for a specific purpose for our spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the mind in this material world and energy can present some very strong arguments. Why, you gonna do what? You what? Come on. You do later for that. You're too young, or you're too this, or, you know, that's for old folks or something. And it can sometimes be conflicting. But we can pray on it. As we've read, I think, a number of times here, who is it? Guru, Sastra, and Sadhu. If you've got any qualms about, well, yeah, he said to do, but I don't know, check those three.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's up to your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
As Krishna told Arjuna after explaining Bhagavad Gita, now I've explained everything to you. You decide you do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it's coming from Guru, Sastra, and Sadhu regulations and all, then they have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a difficulty, then one should make time to find a senior devotee or someone they feel they trust
Mm-hmm.
to help them work through it, or to just share their feelings about it. Is that what you...
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, if, just like, say you want to chant 16 rounds a day, but it's recommended, I think it would be recommended that you chant first maybe 4, then 8, then, you know, like, work your way up to 16 rather than just say, I'm going to chant 16 now, and then you go for a few days, but then you fall back. Like, is it the same for the rule, like, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, like, all of those? If you're, you know, maybe addicted to one, or you feel like you can't just cut it off, is it better to, like, gradually get to that point, like regulated sex life, or, you know, eating a little less of, you know, whatever, or, you know, gambling a little bit less until you totally are following the rules, you know, or regulation?
From my understanding, Prabhupada was that kind of compassionate, understanding spiritual master. And the one story I remember is the Prabhu who smoked. Remember this? You heard this story? I think he was carving. Gurudev, Prabhupada asked him to carve Jagannath deities, I think. And Prabhupada came in and he was smoking, or had the cigarette resting, and was carving the deity. And of course he was embarrassed. But I understand Prabhupada told him, start cutting back 1 a day or something like that. And was quite compassionate with him. Because some habits are very hard to break. But if we are making decisions that this is the philosophy we want, the teaching we want, and our soul is inspiring us, then sometimes we need help, but then you may find again a senior devotee or trusted one, somebody you trust. I'm having trouble with this, work with me. And if I find myself, I'll call you so you can talk to me or something like that. If you want to follow through with this and become more mindful, yes, it may be difficult, but you can get help.
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay. So tonight we're going to look at the meditation continues, and he's saying, today I practice mindful reading. As I peruse different scriptures, I no longer read as if scanning a novel or ancient history, nor did I read as if studying mere philosophy or theology. As I read each chapter, I saw every section as a peephole into the spiritual realm. I like to put a peephole into the spiritual realm, because that's the ultimate goal if we're studying this, huh? Then I would study the subject more closely and reflect on all the phenomenal activities taking place in the spiritual kingdom. Now, his commentary on that says most people read such material in a light mood and simply view it as ancient history. At best, they might see the scripture as some type of philosophical exposition. Mindfulness means going beyond the philosophical speculation, religious cognition, mental gymnastics, and even just the rituals. It means accessing the deep spiritual essence present in all scriptures. Deep mindful reflections far surpasses mental and intellectual experiences. We will no longer read the scriptures as a novel or as a historical account that simply explores philosophical and cosmological considerations. It means that the scriptures will act as catalysts for rich experiences. He continues his meditation. All of a sudden, before I could stop myself, I began to weep incessantly because I understood that no matter how much I pondered these writings, I was not yet qualified to interact with the great entities, nor could I fully comprehend them, communicate with them, and participate in their pastimes of adding to the Supreme Lord's pleasure. All this made me feel incredibly unfortunate as I pondered the irony of coming so close to the spiritual world, yet still remaining so far from its residence. I wept in agony, thinking, why have I been brought to the dinner table and then not been allowed to eat? How could I be brought to the very tip of the window, but then allowed only to window shop? What is the value of all these mindful practices? I cried, if I must continue my existence in this material body. His commentary on this. Sometimes in our spiritual growth, we experience the dark nights of the soul or periods of acceleration in which certain events in our life entice us and make us want more and more. We may even feel, I have come this close. Why can't I come closer? This is the nature of true spiritual unfoldment. When you are nourished, you want more. When something happens in your life that excites you, you also want more. And more of the same. You become more avid and eager for the next experience. On the other hand, when nothing happens, you lose faith, experience boredom, and begin to dabble in so many areas because the energy has to go somewhere. At this point, a person will remain superficial and not deeply delve into any area. Consequently, he or she will not have rich experiences. Those who are having deeper experiences are the most desperate because such experiences entice them to the point of wanting more and more. This is the nature of the soul, which is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, or full of knowledge, bliss, and eternality. Although the Lord emanates so many features of his different energies, he tells us of his higher nature in relationship to the Atma and soul. The ultimate destination of the soul is in the spiritual kingdom. So in this meditation, one is coming so close to experience, but still wants to experience so much more. And I hope you're open your heart and your mind to hear this. I remember when I was fairly new in spiritual life, I guess the Lord was giving me, as Bhakti Tirtha Swami used to say, sometimes he gives us what's called shadow ecstasy. Because I was all over the place and just reading and doing and service. And I remember telling my friends, this spiritual life is so exciting. I haven't experienced anything like this before. And it can be. But just as he mentioned to us about those dark nights of the soul, because as we are experiences, he's talking about these wonderful experiences we can have, we have to go to another level of consciousness. And that's where that dark night of the soul comes in, where it just seems like everything all hell is broken loose and you don't know where to turn or what to do. It can be a really, really sometimes painful experience. But I'm thankful, I guess, at some point I remember just crying, and all I could say is, I must be breaking through to another level of consciousness. So for me, some people really, it's so rough, they want to turn and go out looking for some pleasure, something, or sense gratification. But if you can hang in and you hear sadhus such as this and want to practice and live and experience, it can be wonderful. When that breakthrough comes, it's so exciting. So he says now, this is the meditation, continuing. I went to the temple and again looked at your picture. This time you were not smiling, but you were also crying. And this made me cry even more. Only now to my incredible delight, you stepped right out of your picture and came and gently embraced me. Then you looked compassionately into my eyes and spoke. In your mindful breathing, walking, talking, hearing, eating, and seeing, I was always with you. When you returned to the temple, I smiled each time, knowing that you were shedding all the obstructions that have bound you to the material plane. I was smiling also because I so greatly enjoyed your association during those mindful meditations. You see, at these times we connect on a far deeper and more wonderful level. His commentary. Some people have perceptions of angels, archangels, and other subtle entities. But a person at a deep level of spiritual consciousness can have amazing experiences with the deity, icon, or spiritual personality. Sometimes certain powerful spiritual beings communicate through their voices, paraphernalia, and even through their pictures. For instance, in our temples and homes, we have pictures of gurus and saints which go beyond merely aesthetic purposes. Such pictures actually emanate some of the presence of those spiritual entities. Anything connected with a highly spiritual entity will also emanate spirituality. In this meditation, one enters back into the temple and gazes at the pictures of great agents of the Lord and literally communicates with that particular presence. However, at this point, the presence not only communicates, but actually steps out of the picture for more intense association, communication, and upliftment. The great divine presence then indicates that he always remains with the individual in his or her mindful states. If we can develop a proper mindful consciousness, we will go beyond theory and begin to experience the reality described in great scriptures. Then when we enter into a shrine, a temple, a church, a mosque, or synagogue, we will experience more of the potency of that particular environment. If we maintain proper mindful absorption, we will even feel immediate reciprocation, blessings, and absorption when we talk to the pictures of the saint or guru. This is, I think, the concluding. Okay, we have a little more to go. So he continues his meditation. The Lord is talking to him. So, My darling, there is no reason for your sadness. Don't become so easily discouraged. As long as you maintain your mindful platform, I am mindful of you. More importantly, when you learn to practice mindful sleeping, you will be able to fully connect with me, because then you will be able to understand one of the most sublime cosmic secrets. Throughout the day, while your body is active, you're actually in a deep slumber. It is while your body is at rest during the night that you are actually more awake. At present, in your day-to-day affairs, you are almost fully asleep, but you are gradually waking up. So, my darling, please go into very deep, mindful sleep, for in this state, we will be able to meet and communicate like never before. Commentary. Many insights come to people when they enter sleep. The average person sometimes spends over a third of his or her lifetime asleep, but the saintly person does not sleep as an ordinary affair. Saintly person. Sleep not only provides us with an opportunity to rejuvenate our bodies, but it can also give us a chance to connect with so many realms and engage in various aspects of service. Furthermore, the strength of our mindfulness in our waking state will determine the types of experiences that we have in our dream state. Mindfulness can even allow us to connect with knowledge and blessings in the dream state that can help us function in the waking state. The spiritual masters can assist the disciples by connecting with them when their physical bodies are not so active. In this way, they can plant seeds, give warnings, give encouragements, and offer directions which will stimulate the individual in his or her waking state, consciously as well as unconsciously. This is the close of the meditation. I have so much to tell you, so much to show you, and even more to share with you. So wipe away your tears of sadness. In the near future, there will be time and reason for shedding an ocean of tears, but these will not be tears of pain. They will be tears of pure, ecstatic joy. With these words, you jump back into your picture. Only this time your smile was bigger than ever. When you spoke, you said, "Don't forget mindful sleeping, for it is through this mindful state that you will be awakened from your stupor of illusion and confusion. For now, just carry on with your mindfulness and know that I am eagerly awaiting you. For yours has been a job well done, my darling, well done. I stared for several minutes at your picture. Later that night, I heard your voice faintly repeating, in all your activities, always aim for mindfulness, and especially aim for mindful sleep. Wow, I'll tell you, okay. What I'll do, there's still some time. There's one more section to this chapter before questions and answers. Find the miracles through mindfulness. Many people ceaselessly complain that these days they do in fact have ample reason to complain. Nevertheless, they often put themselves in the consciousness of a victim, which means that they end up surrendering to stagnation and mundaneness instead of really making a difference in their lives. Unfortunately, they go through life feeling very dissatisfied, bored, disappointed, and anxious. When some people arrive at the end of their lives, they may look back and try to understand the purpose of it all. They will then think with disappointment, I pursued fame, wealth, distinction, and adoration, but most of the time I achieved nothing. The few times when I did fulfill my endless desires, I still did not feel any deep satisfaction. Now that I have reached the end of my life, what can I take with me other than emptiness? Other people might wait for something to happen in their consciousness throughout their lives, such as a miracle. However, the miracles are always with us. But we have to be more mindful in order to notice them. By practicing mindful walking, breathing, seeing, hearing, eating, and sleeping, the material world gradually begins to take on the attributes of the spiritual world. Spiritual life is not just a sentimental idea that depends on emotionalism, faith, or sentimentality. It is a science that we can experience by applying the appropriate technology in our lives. Mindfulness is one of those great weapons that allows us to focus and expediently attain the accessible treasures. Even when seemingly inauspicious things bombard us, if we maintain a proper level of mindfulness, we will constantly experience richer and more profound realizations. Then, whether we're in the waking state or in the sleeping state, we will have a wonderful chance to move closer towards liberation and our ultimate service, which is actually part of the eternality of the soul. And thus ends the need for constant mindfulness, chapter 5 in Spiritual Warrior 5. What I would like, any questions or comments? Same amount of people in the chat room, any more came in?
Bhakti Carol said, Mother Indrani appears so beautiful, softly lit and glowing, draped in soft white cloth.
Bhakti and Carol, thank you for your kind words. Did you get anything from tonight's class, from this chapter, that you could share, you would like to share? One idea, one concept, one word, one phrase, one sentence. I'm asking all of you who are out there on the chat room, and we do have a silent majority, I'm thankful to say, who watch and don't write. But please, any of you in the chat room would want to share. If you, what was the word? Accepted or imbibed or grasped something you want to practice on.
Bhakti Carol said, yes, thank you so much for teaching this class. Mindful eating equals this is good to think about and a good reminder. And then Stormy said, I always enjoyed the statement that Krishna is the taste of water.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
I had a comment.
Mm-hmm.
So this mindfulness seems like remembrance of Krishna. And I find it interesting because I was once recommended to read an article on mindfulness, but it was by an impersonalist. So it was emphasizing just based on your own consciousness of like the energy within to like be mindful. So it's very interesting how Bhakti Tirtha Swami emphasizes it in Krishna consciousness, mindfulness. So it's very interesting to me.
Mindfulness means to constantly see Krishna or God in everything at all times. And our studies tell us it's all His energy. Maya is His energy, but she's a servant of Him. But she's there to make sure that we don't try to go to Him with any nonsense. But He's the creator of all. He's the cause of all causes. So everything is His. And just in going through these mindfulness practices that He's written about, it makes us aware. Walking, breathing. We're not breathing on our own. And you can use that breathing in and out to breathe in the love and beauty and breathe out the toxic contamination of the mind, anger and whatever else may be going on. And this way you're always remembering Krishna. It's not that you have to, I gotta remember Krishna. Oh, I forgot Krishna. Oh, God. Mind, look out. Where are you at the moment? What is going on at the moment? Mindful hearing. What are you hearing? If it isn't something for your consciousness, if it's the radio or TV, you can turn it off. If you're in a conversation, you can say, excuse me, I have to leave now, or whatever. And He gives you good examples. I'm working now on this mindful sleep. Because I can't quite remember my dreams. It always seems there's a lot of people in my dreams. Sometimes some of them I know, some I don't. Like, where did he come from? Where did she come from? What's going on? But I would really, because an author cannot write of these experiences unless the author's had the experience. And I would like to, this chapter's been really, really important for me, just endeavoring to be mindful, that mindfulness, and that always brings Krishna to the front. Anybody else, any comment?
Bhakti Carol said, Stormy, me too. I was thinking again when drinking water a moment ago. Bhagavad Gita 7:8.
That's
And then
right.
David said, what a blessing these classes are. I was also. I also thought the sleep while sleeping, how he said that was very important, being mindful. Because I remember reading in one of Srila Prabhupada's purports how sleeping is just like sleeping. When you're sleeping, you're an illusion because you might be flying or you're in this body and that body. Just like you're an illusion sleeping, while waking, when we're thinking that we're the body, we're also an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking that while sleeping, you're in more of an illusion than while you're awake. But it seems, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He was stressing that it was also important.
It is very important, but we have to prepare for it. The mindfulness, it's like reading scripture. I keep some reading next to my bed, and so that I can finish with some spiritual concept or verse or words. And when I lay down and get in my tuck in, I like to get on my left side and curl up and just remember what I've read. So I'm not sure how I'm going to work with this. I think the other night when I was reading in preparation and I'm saying, this is so important, I'm going to really work on this mindfulness of sleep. Because somebody asked me at my guru's Vyasa Puja, have I dreamt about him? Do I have dreams? And I don't recall any dreams. But it isn't that I call him Bhattitirtha Swami, my spiritual master, an ever-present presence. It was true, he left his body in June 2005. But I've never felt him gone. He's always present for me. But when I hear people talk about dreams, I'm saying, I don't. A few times I've woken from a dream and trying to go over it in my mind, it was like, oh my gosh, I think that personality was back to Swami. He was in there somewhere. But just hopefully having dreams that will lift my consciousness so that I can remember Krishna and his associates in my dream. So practice mindfulness, my darlings. And as I've asked before, when you come back next time, maybe keep some notes, huh? Notes? When you notice, because I'm saying I haven't written down, but I've noticed just at the right time, the right moment for whatever, it's taken care of. The situation is clear. And you become more mindful of how it wasn't you who planned it so nicely. There is the Supreme Personality. And then you become more trusting of Him. You become more faithful, have more faith. And you begin to chant more sincerely. So I'm going to close if there are no further comments. Anybody else new had come on, or just those you mentioned in the beginning?
Stormy, Bacton, Carol, and David.
Okay. I thank you all for being there, and I hope you will return next week and practice your mindfulness, which is in everything you do. Have a blessed week. Hare Krishna.